Hello, thank you for attending this webinar on how to enter. My name is Victor de Almeida and I am the Production Programs Manager here at D&AD. I oversee the team responsible for processing every entry submitted into this year's awards, so you're likely to hear from us if we need clarification during the entry process. This webinar has been created to help you make sure your entry lands in the strongest possible shape for the judges. In this webinar, we'll talk through how to prepare your entry before submitting. My colleague Joe will then take you through an entry site walkthrough and explain the importance of providing accurate credits before moving on to how to enter physical materials. She'll then sign off with a few key dates. You've worked hard on your project and now you're ready to submit to D&AD. Before you upload anything, there are a few key terms and sections you'll need to understand to make sure your submission is as clear as possible and avoids delays. This year, we've introduced a new entry validation card. This must be completed accurately and it must be completed by the most senior representative responsible for the work. Next, we still have the supporting information. This section is used to clearly explain your project or campaign. All fields are mandatory. Character limits are strict and refer to characters only, not words. Provide clear cultural context so international judges can understand the environment, the norms, and challenges behind the work. Do refer to the submission guide for best practice examples on that. We have a great example from one of our winners last year. Finally, we also have the media card. Here is where you upload the correct format as specified in the entry kit. Check the technical requirements carefully, including file type, resolution, and maximum length. Use the submission formats guide to confirm what's required. One key thing is to know the difference. Presentation film is a case study. It explains the brief, the idea, the execution, and the results. Film is the campaign as it run. So what we mean is the actual work. This will lead me on to the next section, which is key mistakes to avoid. Whether you're submitting for the first time or you've entered before, there are a few common pitfalls we see every year. This next section highlights the key mistakes to avoid so you can make sure your entry progresses smoothly. Not completing all sections. Every card matters. Missing information slows the process down and can delay your entry from being pushed to judging. Misreading the character count. Again, we mean character count, not word count. Make sure you don't overwrite or underwrite key information. The next big thing we see is missing cultural context. Without this, judges may misunderstand your idea entirely. Cultural context tells them why the work is relevant and why it matters. Uploading the wrong submission format. Use our submission formats guide if you're unsure. There, you can see the difference between all our submission formats. Overlong assets. If your video is even a few seconds over the limit, it may be blocked. Including branding or credits in supporting information. Keep this neutral. Use we, us, the team, the brand. Avoid naming agencies or individuals unless it's a self-promo category. Duplicate entries. If multiple agencies worked on the same project, have a quick conversation internally before you submit. We sometimes receive duplicate entries for the same work in the same subcategory. This can create complications for everyone involved. That's all from me. If you have any queries, please feel free to reach out. Good luck with all your entries. And now over to my colleague Joe.
Thanks, Victor. And hey, everyone, I'm Joe. For the next section, I'll be walking through the entry site step by step. I'll be showing you how to create an entry, how to fill out all of the required cards, and then on to payment and submitting your entry. So let's jump in. So when you click into the entry site, this is what you see first, the dashboard. This is where you get a clear overview of all your entries, including the status of each one, easy access to create, view, and edit anything you're working on. You also see a few helpful widgets on the side here, things like key dates, deadline, and even last year's winners, which we highly recommend checking out. So let's create an entry now. Entries are organised using projects, which are designed to group relevant work together. If you're entering the same piece of work into multiple categories, you want to keep those entries under a single project. That way, shared information only needs to be added once. If you're entering completely different work, that's when you create a new project. From here, you'll select your category, your subcategory, and whether it's a single or a series entries. Some categories may even call it a campaign or range. If you want to, you can continue creating multiple entries within the same project, like so. You'll also see a suggested category section where we've highlighted a handful of categories that may be suitable for your project. Quick note, these are just suggestions, so we do recommend double checking they're relevant to your work before creating. And just hit submit and your entries are created. Now that you've created your entries, on the left hand side you'll see an overview of your entries and where you are in the process. This is a great way to have an overview without heading back to the dashboard. There is also a progress bar on the right here to help you keep track of your entry. Everything saves automatically as you go, so you don't have to worry about losing anything. If you do want to come back to a section later, you can click Mark as Draft. Just a note that a card can only be completed once Mark as Draft is deselected. Any cards marked with a red asterisk are mandatory, and you'll find optional cards under Add More section here. A super helpful function we have is linking, so all entries within the same project are linked, which means if multiple entries share the same card, you only need to fill that information in once. This will save you so much time if you have multiple entries within the same project. Any updates you make will automatically apply across those entries. If you do need to tailor a card for one specific entry, you can simply create a new version like so. If you change your mind, you can easily swap back the versions. Now let's move on to the media card. In the media card, the submission format you'll see depends on the category or subcategory you're entering into. Some format will be mandatory and others optional. Follow the instructions carefully when uploading your assets. You can always save time by reusing assets from My Project Gallery. If you are submitting a URL or an app that requires logging, you can add those details directly in the URL fields, like so. If applicable, you may see optional submission formats at the bottom. Just toggle it on or off depending whether you want to submit any optional submission formats. Moving on to our entry validation details card. This section is new for 2026 and forms part of our integrity policy, which you can find more information on our website. It needs to be created by a senior representative from your company or agency, or if you are freelancing, by you. This declaration confirms that all information you submitted is accurate. Next, we'll move on to the use of AI card. You just basically need to let us know whether AI was used at any stage of the work, including ideation, production, case films, written content, or any other submission materials. Just explain how AI was involved, if at all. The drop-down fields will guide you through this. Now let's move on to the credits card. So the credits you submit ensures your work is represented accurately if it's shortlisted or wins. And they're also used for the D&AD awards and rankings too. Just remember, at this stage, we're only collecting primary credits. You find details on the specific credits needed for each category via the eye icons here. And you just fill out all of the required fields. If a credit doesn't apply, you can simply tick not applicable. If your entry is successful, these credits will appear at the ceremony, on a website, annual, and in the rankings. After the shortlist announcement, we'll contact you for a full set of credits. Now, there could be scenarios where you accidentally created an entry that you no longer need. You can basically now remove these entries. To remove, you can either delete an entire project from the project menu or delete individual entries. Deleted entries are stored in the archive where you can either restore them or delete them permanently. It's up to you. Just remember, you can't delete entries that have been paid for or submitted. Now, let's move on to payment. If you would like to pay in a different currency, you can choose between Great British Pounds, Euros, or USD. Just change the currency at the top here. When it comes to payment, you don't have to complete all the entry sections first. You can actually pay as soon as you create an entry, even if you haven't filled out anything yet. This means you can pay now and submit later. Before heading to checkout, make sure you read the information here. On this page, select the entry or entries you like to add to your basket, then proceed to checkout. Payment can be made by card or bank transfer. Just fill out all of the required fields down here. If you do have a discount code, you can enter it here as well. Once payment is completed, your category and subcategory are locked, but you can still continue editing your content of your entry, and a copy of your invoice will be sent to your email. One really important thing to remember, paying doesn't mean your entry has been submitted. You still need to complete and finalize your entry and click submit, which I'll go through next. Once you return back to the dashboard, you can now see the entry has been paid for and you have a countdown on when you have to submit by. One last step is to submit your entries. In order to submit, you need to make sure all of your cards are 100% complete and hit the submit button. Here you'll be able to select the entries that you want to submit. Read through these important information here. Once an entry is submitted, it becomes fully locked and you won't be possible to make any further changes. So please make sure all the correct information are inputted before you go ahead and submit. And that's it, and that's how you submit an entry. If you're unable to submit, it's usually because something is still incompleted, so please just double check you haven't missed out any mandatory fields. Now that we walked through the entry site, if you've selected a category that requires physical materials, you might be wondering how to send it in. So, first of all, please only send physical materials if your category specifically requires them, either as mandatory or optional. Once you submitted your entry, you'll then be able to download your shipping labels. It's important to only use these labels and apply them exactly as outlined in the guide. For single entries, you receive one label. For series or range entries, you receive multiple labels, one for each execution. So every item must have its own label. This basically helps our team identify your entry when it arrives at our office. Where you place the label also matters. Physical objects should have the label attached with removable tape on the bottom. Posters should be labelled on the back on the left-hand side, and printed materials should be labelled on the back page on the bottom right corner. If the items are small, you can basically group them together securely. A folder or an envelope will do the job. The outer packaging is just as important, so every package needs a package label. And if you're sending more than one package, number them clearly. For example, 1 of 2, 2 of 2. This again helps our team quickly identify your packages and spot if anything is missing. So all shipping and custom fees should be paid in advance. If custom fees aren't covered, we can't take responsibility for packages being returned. Also, please make sure no packages are delivered on weekends, as our office is closed. So our deadlines are strict and will depend on the tier you've entered. Super early bird entries must arrive by the 4th of February, early bird entries by the 4th of March, and standard entries by the 8th of April. Remember, these are arrival dates, not shipping dates, so please factor in that when you are planning. You can return your physical materials after judging. Just get in touch with our team by the end of March to let us know. We also recommend avoiding sending any duplicate materials unless it's necessary. Each entry should only receive one physical material or a full set if you're entering a series or a range. And finally, if your entry has any special requirements, please just reach out to us in advance so we can accommodate. That pretty much covers how to enter. Now let's run through some important dates for the 2026 awards to know exactly what to keep in your calendar. So the super early bird deadline has already passed, so we're now focusing on the remaining 2 tiers, early bird and standard. For the early bird tier, payment must be completed by Wednesday 11th of February, followed by a submission deadline 1 week later on Wednesday the 18th of February. For the standard deadline, payment must be completed by Thursday the 19th of March and submission due the following week on Thursday 26th of March. Once the standard submission deadline closes, we then move on to the judging phase, which basically runs from late March up until mid-May. During this period, our juries review all of the entries and start shortlisting and awarding pencils for the strongest work. Finally, the winner's announcement will be released between 19th to 20th of May, so please be sure to save these dates and keep an eye out on your inbox. If you are one of the lucky winners this year, we'll email you to let you know the good news. Also, to request a full and more detailed credits list, referred to as awards credits, where you can credit all of the companies and individuals who worked on this winning project. Awards credits will aid rankings calculation and will be displayed on our website along with your work. If you are a pencil winner, we'll also request you to add your delivery address to receive your complimentary pencil. Please make sure to fill this out promptly so it reaches to you without delay. Wood, graphite, yellow, white, and black pencil winners will receive a pencil. If you like, you can also order additional pencils on the website. And each winning piece of entry will also be shared on the website, added to the D&AD archive, and featured in the 2026 annual. That brings us to the end of our webinar. So, to quickly recap, we've gone through how to prepare your entries and common issues we flagged. We walked through our entry site and the process of creating, paying, and submitting an entry. And we also outlined key dates that you should be adding to your calendar. On a final note, you'll find a few helpful resources to support you, including our website, our FAQ, and our contact details. If you do have any questions after today, or if you'd like some guidance on your submission, please just contact us at awards@dandad.org. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we wish you a very best of luck with your entries.